In an old town's outskirts, there stood an abandoned house. Its broken fences and moss-covered roof tiles were like a scar the town had long forgotten. Legends whispered of a strange story about a little girl who once lived in that house. It was said that one day she was mysteriously forced into marriage, and since then, the house harbored a dark secret. When Rosa moved into this old house with her parents, the townsfolk silently watched them. Nobody said anything to them directly, but their stares spoke volumes. Rosa, a lively 9-year-old, explored their new home with excitement, but the silence behind the old walls gave her an odd sense of unease. The first few weeks passed normally. Rosa explored the corners of the old house and played in the yard. But one night, she heard a whisper coming from the mirror in her room. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the whispers became distinct. Rosa ... called a thin voice. The girl sat up in her bed, her hair standing on end, and looked at the mirror. She felt something was wrong with her reflection, but she couldn't quite understand what. The next day, when she told her mother about it, her mother laughed and said it was just a nightmare. Her father mentioned that the antique mirror, which he found in an old trunk in the basement, had been left by the house's previous owners. "It's just an old piece of furniture," he said. But Rosa felt the mirror was anything but ordinary. One night, the whispers grew louder. Rosa got out of bed and approached the mirror. The glass surface seemed like a door. "Come," said the thin voice. Rosa stepped back in fear, but she also felt a strange pull. Her hands moved toward the mirror as if on their own. The glass rippled like a cold, vibrating surface, and suddenly Rosa found herself in another place. On the other side of the mirror, she was in the center of an old hall. The walls were draped in black velvet curtains, and candlelight cast flickering shadows. In the hall, there were beings that resembled humans, but were not quite human. Their faces were made of shadows and constantly shifted. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a thin, cold voice. "At last, you've come, Rosa. We've been waiting for you." Rosa stepped back in fear. "I don't know you." "How did I get here?" she asked. The being approached her with what looked like a smile. "There is a curse in your blood," it said. "The only way to end it is for us to marry you to your chosen groom." At that moment, Rosa's pajamas transformed into a white wedding dress. But the dress was old and stained. "Today is your wedding day, Rosa," said another shadow. Rosa screamed at these words and tried to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The shadows reached out their hands toward her. "You cannot escape," they said. "This is your destiny." Suddenly, Rosa remembered the book her father had found in the old trunk in the basement. That book might hold the key to escaping this nightmare. Gathering all her courage, she shouted, "This marriage won't break the curse. I'll find a way to stop you." The shadows hesitated for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Rosa ran toward the mirror and touched the glass surface with her hands. The next moment, she was back in her room. She was out of breath but acted quickly. She ran to the basement and opened the old trunk. Inside, she found a dust-covered book. The cover bore symbols she didn't understand, but as she flipped through the pages, she found a ritual. This ritual, she realized, could seal the mirror and the shadows within it. Rosa took the book back to her room. She lit candles, drew a circle on the floor, and sat in front of the mirror. She began reading the words from the book aloud. The mirror rippled like a pond, and the shadows inside began to scream. As the ritual continued, the shadows disappeared into the mirror. When it was over, the room fell silent. The mirror was now just an ordinary piece of glass. Rosa took a deep breath and closed the book tightly. That night, she lay down and had a peaceful sleep for the first time. The next morning, the corner of the room where the mirror had been was completely empty. Her father told her they had destroyed both the mirror and the trunk. "Let's focus only on the future from now on," her mother said, stroking Rosa's hair. The family decided to make a fresh start in the house. However, Rosa silently promised herself never to meddle with mirrors again. As the town gradually forgot the old house's past, Rosa's adventure remained a secret in her mind. But one thing was certain: fate had not defeated her. As she moved on with her life, she knew that the courage growing inside her would help her face any darkness.